All right. Hello, 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 hello. Hello. Good morning, school. Let's open up the book. Let's open up the book and see what we got here today, huh? How's everybody doing? Throw a flex emoji in the comments if you guys are tuning in. If you're live and you're watching this, please let me know where you're located at, Shred Nation. Let me know where we are. There we go. There's our first muscular contraction of the day in the comments. What's up, baby? Welcome to episode 41. Let's get our day started off right. I read a good book recently. Yes, I read a good book recently. And we're going to talk about what I learned from that book. I'm going to share with you guys that book that you might want to explore yourself. And it's a great nutrition book, and it puts a lot of things in perspective. And we're going to get into that today. But before we do, we're going to go over some general housekeeping stuff. That is, if you guys are interested in bettering your holistic health and fitness, right now I'm offering one free guide. So the promotion for the 10-part series is up, but the one free guide to gut health is now live at schoolofshredpodcast.com. And so this is where I usually start with all of my clientele as I look at how their digestion is, because leaky gut is usually a symptom of a body that is not working correctly. And that's the first thing we want to correct, which is our gut health. So I've put together a guide for you on that. You can get that for free, all right, just for becoming part of the School of Shred newsletter. Go to schoolofshredpodcast.com, jump on that, get some free information, get your gut right, and you will be on the path, so to speak. So this is the School of Shred every day, 9 a.m., Monday through Friday. And this is holistic health and fitness. So we're here to look at mind, body, spirit, okay? Because everything's related. Everything's connected. All systems are connected. This is the show that helps you shred your old and make better your new. Okay, it's not just body fat we shred on this show. We shred limitations. We shred old habits, things that we don't want. We become better in every way, day by day. With that said, let's get into it. So episode 41, I read a good book recently, and there's 4 takeaways that I want to go over in that book. And it was a fantastic book. The name of the book is Deep Nutrition from Dr. Cate Shanahan. Absolutely recommend this book. The smartest person I've ever listened to on the effects of polyunsaturated fats and vegetable oils. Absolutely incredible book. She goes over a lot of cultural stuff in there. So cultural nutrition and how in America, we don't really have a culture of the way that we eat. We don't really have tradition, you know? I mean, we have Thanksgiving, but we don't really have tradition as far as food selections and whatnot. And what I mean by that, and what she points out in this book, is that if you look at like Asian cultures, they eat nose to tail naturally. So there will be liver and other types of organ meats in a lot of Asian dishes. They also do meat on the bone, which we don't do anymore. We just, especially even when we're healthy, we just want to eat boneless, skinless chicken breast. And I'm going to get into how that's kind of separating us from the natural world. And I'm going to let you know right now that my personal philosophy, okay, that guides my decisions, is that man has been pulled from the natural world because of technology now. And technology is awesome, and I'm using it right now. I'm not totally against technology at all. But when it comes to nutrition and health practices, what I'm intuitively called to is getting back in touch with this natural world. And that's the jam, and that's kind of where we go with this show. This is part of this natural thing. So that's what we're going to get into today is, you know, this idea of rediscovering some things that we've forgotten about recently in the last 50, 100 years. And I'll tell a little story about, I visited my grandparents the other day, and some of the stuff loops into that. But this is all stuff that we used to do, which is like eat meat off the bone, eat organ meats. But in this country, we don't have any of that. We think organ meats are disgusting. I know I did up until about 2 years ago, until I learned about the nutritional value of them. We grow up on pizza and pop and high fructose corn syrup everywhere. And I know that's what we grow up on because I went through the system. I was not healthy growing up. At school at lunchtime, I remember we had a la carte and we had Papa Murphy's pizza that was delivered every day. Have a piece of pizza that was probably about, this wide. For people who are listening to this, probably would be like half of a DiGiorno is like what I was eating at lunch every day, about half the size of a frozen pizza. Huge greasy pizza, huge cookie that was like the size of almost a softball. And then Gatorade, that's what I grew up on. And this is what's in our school system. And this is the thing, is we have all of this processed food that has no resemblance of the natural world. The pepperoni pizza with a bunch of cheese on it and, sodium nitrate filled pepperonis and all of that. It tastes really good. And that's what is going on. It's hijacking our taste buds, but it has nothing in common with the natural world. Gatorade, a cookie, all of that. So anyway, let's get into it. So what are the 4 things that are outlined in this book? It goes super deep on vegetable oils and how toxic those guys are for our brain and our blood lipids and all of that. That's the majority of the book, actually, is this case for getting rid of all vegetable oils and all PUFAs, which are polyunsaturated fats. But there's 4 main points that are great that I want to get into, and that's meat on the bone. So eating meat on the bone, consuming organ meats, consuming fermented and pickled goods, and then consuming raw and cooked vegetables in combination. And so those a 4 guiding principle is pretty solid if you look at that and you make that a goal, is to start eating meat off the bone again, eating organ meats, fermented foods which have our bacteria in them, and then cooking vegetables and eating them raw. So let's get into meat on the bone. So when you eat meat on the bone, you're getting minerals. Okay. Just so happens that in animal products, we are actually getting what our body needs. So when you are consuming meat off the bone, you're going to be getting more of the mineral content, especially when you're cooking meat on the bone, more of the mineral content, which we need in our bones. We store in our bones, but we also use when we sweat and we exercise. So with that said, you can also repurpose the bones that you eat with. So if you are eating, say, ribs, or you're eating, chicken, and you eat it off the bone, if you get really good bones, if you're vetting good sources, this is particularly awesome, is if you have like a pasture-raised chicken bones and you throw them in a pot with some water, you can do a slow simmer and create a nice broth over 10 to 14 hours. And that broth is going to have glycine in it, which is really restorative on the gut. Very, very good for you. Helps actually sleep. Glycine can help with that. There's a lot of complementary nutrition that comes with bones that we don't get from muscle meats. And so eating meat off the bone, there is an argument to be made that you're getting more nutrition when you're cooking the meat on the bone, and then you can repurpose those bones for bone broth later. This is part of this nose to tail style eating. Number 2 is organ meats. So organ meats supply the complementary nutrition to muscle meats. So if you start looking at nutritional value of organ meats, it's quite extensive how much micronutrition is in organ meats. As I talked about before, 3.5 ounces of grass-fed beef liver will provide you like 1,600% of your daily value of B vitamins, which are water-soluble vitamin that help tremendously in energy. And the way they do this is that they help with metabolic and cellular health and cellular energy. So each one of your B vitamins has a different role in cellular energy. What you feel is a spike in overall energy and vitality. That's why a lot of like little energy shots that you can get from the store, they're loaded with B vitamins. That's kind of been a big energy type product. People get B vitamin shots. If you were to eat liver, you would be getting all of that naturally. You wouldn't have to put a syringe inside you. You wouldn't have to get these man-made drinks from the store. Nature has that packaged already in organ meats. And so it is definitely worth learning how to cook and prep organ meats and having them on a regular basis. I eat organ meats. I was doing it 2 times a week up until recently. Now I'm doing a little bit every day between like liverwurst and grass-fed beef liver. I've been doing a lot of grass-fed beef heart and pasture-raised chicken hearts and things like that. So I'm really going a lot deeper into that. I'm starting to get some other meats too that I'm going to explore, kidney and whatnot, because you start looking into this thing and it really starts to put a picture together of like, we might be lacking certain nutrients that we're not getting. And then we have to supplement or buy supplements. And you can do that if you want, but if you want to be more natural and more in touch with nature, then, doing these organ meats can definitely help with that. Organs were said by indigenous tribes to improve organs. So, although it might be a bit woo-woo sounding, like I said, bones, they have the minerals that we store in our bones. And then these organs typically have nutrients that help those organs in us. So that's kind of something that's been passed down and we've kind of forgotten about. But, old indigenous tribes used to heavily believe in this type of stuff. So I think it's really interesting. I think it's something it's totally new and foreign to a lot of us. So, I kind of sit as a student with open ears to listen to some of these older traditions of people that, when we couldn't just be picky and just have ribeyes all the time. We had to consume the whole animal and figure out how to do that. Moving on from organ meats, because you might be gagging right now if you've ever had them and don't like them. Trust me, you can cook them the right way. You can prep them the right way. But number 3 is going to be fermented and pickled goods. So I was at my grandparents over the weekend, and I remember I grew up with them. I moved in with my grandparents when I was just getting into 4th grade, and I remember my grandma always like pickling and doing the canning thing with mason jars and dropping them in the boiling water and sealing them. And we always had a big deep freezer growing up, several deep freezers. And there was basically the storage room was a big deep freezer. And then the ceiling was about 12 feet high of just stacks and shelves of different canned foods that my grandma would can every year. And she would repurpose a lot of stuff from the garden. So like rhubarb and the other vegetables that they would grow in their garden on the side of the garage. And, you always think that that's old timer stuff and whatnot. But, my grandparents come from an era where that was what you did. That's how you preserved your food. You didn't have access to just being able to go to the store all the time. So there's a natural fermentation that can happen when you have you cut up a bunch of cabbage and you put salt in it and you create like a brine. And then you pickle it. It actually creates the lactobacillus strains of bacteria that are good for your gut. And this is stuff that people used to do just to preserve their food. And it used to help tremendously with their health. And we're now finding that out. And so now it's funny how we're going back in time with our nutrition a bit. This is this whole talk about gut health and probiotics and all that. Kimchi and sauerkraut and all these things, they used to naturally just be done because it was a means to keep food around through maybe a harder winter and things like that. So I find that interesting because I was talking to my grandparents and, telling them about all the stuff that I'm doing. I'm making my own sauerkraut, and, my grandpa wanted me to bring him over some sauerkraut. And it was cool to talk to them. And, to them, they didn't know a world where you weren't doing that. And I was just explaining to them, our healthcare system just seems so jacked up because of the lifestyle and the food that we're eating. And a lot of us are unaware of, we're unaware of these types of food products. And so we got a question coming in right now that is, can you consume too much probiotics? Yeah, you definitely could. I mean, you could consume too much of anything. That's why it's good to rotate. So, you want to rotate between sauerkraut and kimchi and different strains of probiotic. So I'll get into, we have a few main ones are like kombucha, kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir. A good general rule is if you have, Chris Kresser is a good doctor on this topic. And he says with each meal that you have, ask yourself 2 questions. What is this doing for my body? And what is this doing for my gut health? And so you can have like a little spoonful with each meal if you do a few meals a day. But yeah, I mean, I definitely don't think that you should be eating, half a jar of sauerkraut a day. There could be a limit, and it's a case by case basis, like anything. How much you need and how much you can handle. I know I've done quite a bit in the past and been fine, and I feel good. But I also look at my poo-poo. I look at my stool. I'm constantly assessing how is my body reacting to this stuff, and this is where it gets into you gotta be checking in with your body constantly and seeing how you're doing, how you're feeling, where's your energy at. Are you bloated after a meal? If you have too many probiotics, you can start to get that bloat. That can be a sign that you might be consuming too much. So you don't have to go overboard. It's just something that you can implement with each meal, which is a few spoonfuls or a spoonful of a probiotic source. I like natural probiotics. Probiotics off the store shelves for supplements and whatnot, I just have a hard time trusting. I don't know logistically how they got there. I know they try to keep everything cold and whatnot and temperature controlled to get them to the supplement store. I'm skeptical. I would rather do it the natural way, because that's the original way. That's the OG way of getting these, is consuming them through foods. So sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, kefir. If you want to really go down the rabbit hole, you can look into raw milk and do some some self-study on that. All that stuff is going to have some good nutrition in it for you and good probiotics. So that's number 3, which is pickled and fermented foods. You could also do it with really any other vegetable. You can do it with carrots, anything like that. I'm repurposing a lot of the vegetables from our garden, and I want to can them and just play with it and see how they taste. So number 4 is cooked and raw vegetables. Going back and forth between the two can be good. Some vegetables, when you cook them, you make them more bioavailable. I know broccoli, I get a big rock gut and I get bloated from raw broccoli. And so I always cook broccoli and I cook it down, and it makes it more bioavailable. And the weird thing is a lot of this stuff is in a raw form, it's got more nutrition, but when you cook it, you can absorb more. So it's this weird inverse relationship with some stuff, that you actually get more nutrition from killing some of the nutrition, right? If you were to look at it outside, but it's just because you make it more bioavailable and you make it easier for your body to digest, absorb, and assimilate the nutrition from it. So that's something to consider. Another thing that Kate talks about in this book, Dr. Shanahan, is that eat the rainbow. And then one thing I've heard her say is 4 salads each week with 4 different colors in them. This is pretty easy, pretty cool thing that you can do. So each week, throughout the week, do 4 different salads. And when you do those salads, make sure there's at least 4 different colors in them. So you might do kale, like an orange pepper, a tomato, maybe a cucumber, something like that, onion. But it's a loose, kind of thing to do, but it's pretty cool because you're going to be consuming a lot of different good stuff there, a lot of micronutrition. Talked about how cooking makes it more bioavailable. Yeah, and just eat the rainbow. Just try to explore different vegetables. When I go to the store, if I'm actually shopping for produce, which I haven't really been this summer, like I'm talking about, but usually I'm trying to find new stuff and different stuff. Right now, I'm really into just eating off the land that we have here in the garden, and stuff that would naturally grow where I'm located, which is in Washington State. So that's pretty big. So anyway, that's 4 things that you can look at, and with any of these 4, ask yourself, which one are you open to attacking this week? Which one could you explore? Is it meat on the bone? Start doing that. Is it organ meats? Is it fermented and pickled goods? Or is it raw and cooked vegetables? So I think that this is really insightful. I think it's really simple, but I think it's absolutely amazing. And it gets us in touch with the natural world again, which, like I said, is my belief from everything that I've learned, is that this is one of the main things that is slowly bleeding our society of our potential and our power and our energy. Is we are losing touch with the natural world as we continue to adopt technology, which is great for other reasons, but we're starting to lose the caveman style of nourishing our body, and we're going with more of a spaceman style of nourishing our body, which our bodies are just not acclimated to do quite yet. So this stuff is really good. These old traditions we can look at. And so that's it for today. That's episode 41. I read a good book, and that's what I learned. Eat meat on the bone, eat organ meats, consume pickled and fermented foods, and eat cooked and raw vegetables. So if you guys want to jump on the email list and get some awesome value from the School of Shred, go ahead and go to the schoolofshredpodcast.com right now, enter your email, and you will be added and get a free gift. Thank you guys for listening. Share this episode if you can to help get the word out there and help everybody relearn and rediscover what holistic health and fitness is. Relearn and rediscover. Today, we rediscovered 4 things that have been lost in the sands of time. And as we rediscover these things, we'll be healthier for it. And when we get healthier, we can go out and we can produce more inside of our lives and have better relationships. We can be better in business, and we can pursue our purpose when we have energy and we have that power, and we take our power back as human beings. So thank you guys for watching. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. with the almighty School of Shred. And with that, I want you guys to stay strong and healthy in body. Stay relentless and energized in your spirits, and stay determined in your pursuits. That spells shred. Now go shred the day and get better in every way. That's episode 41. Class dismissed.